Hey, welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the not-so-subtle Thanksgiving theme edition. Today is episode 258. These smoked human remains are the oldest known mummies so far, and knife breaks off in man's chest, and he didn't notice for 8 years. My friends, if you happen to find yourself within the borders of a troubled nation called the United States during this time of the year, then you are most likely feeling the inescapable grip of the approaching holiday season. Not only that, but I'm currently writing the notes to this episode in late September, so I can't possibly imagine experiencing the juxtaposition of forced holiday cheer against whatever political clusterfuck turducken we may be facing at the time this airs. So, to alleviate this situation, and for our enjoyment, I'm going to provide a feast, a virtual spread of topics that are a favorite on this show, including curious ways humans handle their dead, things getting stuck in people, and medical oddities. In the first half of the show, handling the dead. If you're a long-time listener, then you and I have handled many a corpse. Well, not literally, of course, but vicariously, through the discoveries of archaeologists who hit pay dirt. No pun intended. For example, back in episode 132, we landed in Clodholland, Scotland, which 3,000 years ago was a tiny Bronze Age village, and is today an archaeological wonderland. 2 skeletons were found within the walls of an excavated home. And boy howdy, turns out after DNA tests were performed in 2013 and 2015, they weren't really 2 bodies at all. The lower jaw, arm bone, and thigh bone of what was thought to be one female all came from different people. That's 3 different people. And the torso, skull, neck, and lower jaw of what was thought to be one male actually belonged to 3 separate men. That is wild. But it gets wilder. We also know that all 6 people did not share the same mother, but they were definitely related. And their relations spanned generations. One of the skeletons was assembled between 1260 BCE and 1440 BCE, while the other was Frankensteined between 1130 BCE and 1310 BCE. That's a 200-year-old practice of attaching and reattaching family members. Now, if you haven't had a listen as to why such a practice would exist, you should have a listen. There are theories. Now, the idea of keeping our deceased loved ones close, like really close, may sound uncomfortable to our ears, but it's actually our modern Western ways, like stuffing them away in some far-off plot in a massive cemetery, for example. That's what's new and unusual. We will be heading to southern China and Southeast Asia, where researchers have discovered what they believe to be the earliest evidence of ceremonial mummification known to science so far. We will meet the team who scoured over 4 dozen burial plots that contained bodies who, let's just say, were very specifically arranged. We will look upon these bodies. We will compare them to how they resemble the mummification practices in the Papua New Guinea highlands today, and learn how that similarity led to a discovery that rewrites just how far back the process of mummification goes. We'll also get into how these pre-Neolithic peoples prepared their dead, and if you take a peek at the title of today's episode, you'll get a clue. Delicious. Then after the break, things getting stuck in people and medical oddities. Whew. After 5 years, I could safely say a good portion of our episodes include one or the other, or sometimes both. One that has stuck in my mind, no pun intended here, is episode 190, when we traveled to the aptly named Shankarapur Hospital in Nepal and gazed upon an X-ray for the ages. After hours of serious drinking, a 22-year-old man got into a serious fight, which led to a stabbing. The patient went on to say he was taken to a, quote, local medical shop, where someone at the place cleaned the wound on the right side of his abdomen and shut it closed with 8 intense staples. The next day, he arrived at Shankarapur, not complaining of the wound, but about a pain on the left side of his stomach. Wouldn't you know it, when that stabbing occurred, the blade had broken off in his body. And wouldn't you know it, that 15-centimeter or 6-inch long knife, 2-inch wide blade, moved from the right side to the left without causing additional injuries. only discomfort. That man was damn lucky, and we were lucky enough to see the x-ray of that blade just sitting there, inside his body, looking all pointy and shiny, and it was intense. Today, I'm proud to say I found one story better. This time, we'll be in Tanzania. And this time, it won't be a day later when the knife is found, but 8 fucking years. Did you just audibly blurt out, how? Yeah, we'll cut into it. In the meantime, hi, I'm Jill Chacha, and if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my equally lucky business goose. To begin, I need to introduce you to some truly important people who, without their curiosity, courage, and innovation, we as a species wouldn't be where we are today. Hell, we as a species probably wouldn't exist. During massive chunks of time, called the Paleolithic and early Mesolithic, spanning roughly 3.3 million to 10,000 years ago, various groups of homos paraded the Earth, contributing so much to this genus, it eventually gave rise to the species known as sapiens. Early hominins like Homo erectus and Homo ergaster learned to control fire between 1.5 million to 300,000 years ago, which we could say was critical for massive strides, including cooking, staying fucking warm, and warding off predators who were very much the apex at the time. Creatures like saber-toothed tigers, leopards, and the giant short-faced hyena clocking in at 240 pounds. Being surrounded by death-inspired tools, which became more specialized, utilizing what we today call the levallois technique to create flatter, sharper blades for tasks like scraping and cutting. They're perfect for skinning all sorts of animals, including others of our genus, as we've come to learn on this show. Also great for making crude flaps of clothing to help shield the body over long distances as families and clans moved with the seasons, gathering and killing what was available at the time. Safety in numbers and ingenious inventions helped up the survival, but this was no fucking picnic. And it looks like it took an emotional toll on those who survived. Intentional burials with personal items are found at sites over 100,000 years ago, potentially signifying religious practices or a concern for the dead. Put a pin in this, if you will. Perhaps the most breathtaking achievement of these time periods, though, is the art. Around 40,000 to 10,000 BCE, magnificent cave art, sculptures, and musical instruments like bone flutes were made, and they can be found on nearly every continent today. Us sapiens flopped onto the scene about 300,000 years ago, learning, partaking in, and advancing all of this. Altogether, these homos of the Paleolithic and early Mesolithic are called pre-Neolithic people. And I tip my hat. The amount of coordination, cooperation, and drive that's needed to get through the unimaginable is something I can't imagine happening today. But I digress. This is just a very long way of saying the more we understand this period of our history, maybe our future will be brighter. Well, at the very least, it's fascinating to reveal what our genus was up to, and it's gotta be a rush to find an ancient burial ground. Just ask Dr. Seo Chun Hung, Senior Researcher Fellow at the School of Culture, History, and Language at the Australian National University. In 2017, she and her colleagues were on a whirlwind tour of southern China and Southeast Asia, including the Philippines, Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan, all on a hunt for such burials of pre-Neolithic people who inhabited the region roughly 20,000 to 4,000 years ago. If you drop whatever body you're holding right now and pick up your phone to tap on today's post over at the socials, you'll see a map of this part of the world, marked with 95 locations Dr. Hung and the gang excavated. Yeah, I said Dr. Hung. You'll also see a photo of some of the team in Guangxi, southern China. And if you look really carefully, you'll see each member of the crew squatting over an individual burial plot. There's 5 people, each with a dustpan and a handheld broom, carefully sweeping off a body located in a space probably no wider than a meter, or 3 feet across. And if that sounds like a compact place to stuff a human, and you're wondering how that is possible, you're not alone. By the time Hung and the gang arrived in central Vietnam in September, Hirofumi Matsumura, an experienced physical anthropologist and anatomist, also, quote, noticed some skeletons were arranged in ways that defied anatomical sense, end quote, from Dr. Hung's essay in theconversation.com. In other words, the team noticed a pattern was developing. And to help describe this pattern and the physical state the deceased were positioned, what better way but to contort yourself right now? So please, if you will, no matter where you are, be it a packed elevator or waiting for the bus, please drop to the ground. Thank you. Sit with your butt cheeks to the floor and press your thighs and knees to your chest. Perfect. Now wrap your arms around your legs and pull as tightly as you can. The goal is to become the smallest ball you can imagine. Well done. Now, that was pretty good, but it wasn't as small as some of the bodies the team discovered. Swipe past the map and archaeological dig, and you'll see a close-up of 9,000-year-old remains of a middle-aged man. And then, a collage of 6 additional burials, all from southern China. The location of the knees was so close to the skull, and the hands so far down around the feet, one can't help but think this wasn't done by merely placing the dead in their tiny dugout hole and then walking away. The team felt these people were prepared for burial, which, according to Dr. Hung's essay, was a theory that contradicted what previous archaeologists working across the region had believed. For decades, these plots were classified as straightforward primary burials. Now, what the fuck does that mean? Well, it means, as the team noted in their paper, which we're digging into right now, a study published this September in the journal PNAS, a primary burial is basically, quote, interment of a deceased individual in the ground shortly after death, without significant post-mortem alteration, end quote. Girl, I'm not a doctor or nothing, but these folks have been handled. And that's exactly what the team thought too. Well, not quite. But Dr. Hung did crack a joke in her own way. For real. In Hung's essay, she recalled, while taking a short break from excavating in central Vietnam, a colleague, Kim Dung Nguyen, bringing up how the bodies looked intentionally placed and seated. Matsumura was like, yeah, I agree, I've been saying this, something is up with their bone positioning. It was at this time Dr. Hung cracked an inside joke only archaeologists, and in a minute all of us listening, would get. Quote, I remember blurting out, half joking but genuinely curious, could these burials be similar to the smoked mummies of Papua New Guinea? End quote. Yeah, I said it was an inside joke. So that means it's time to talk about the smoked mummies of Papua New Guinea, their mummification process, and the ceremonies around them that still occur to this day. Let's start by heading over to a village called Wogi in Wamena, Papua. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who may be wondering where in the world this is, don't worry, I've got you. Please imagine Australia. Thank you. Point to the upper right-hand corner and move your finger a smidge north. Perfect. Say hello to the dash of an island called Papua New Guinea, which is divided down the middle, with the left side going by Papua, and the right side simply as Papua New Guinea. In the middle of Papua, you're going to find a super remote village called Wogi, and 2 very special residents. One of them is named Eli Mabel, of the Dani tribe, and the second is the person he's holding in the photo I have over at our social medias. I will give you a moment to check them out. Okay, I can see the look on your face from here. It says, wait. Jill, you said we'd be checking out a person, a resident. This looks like Eli is holding maybe a black marble statue of a seated person, or maybe one made of a super dark kind of clay. What's going on here? Well, good guess, my fleshy business goose, but 'tis no sculpture. The person he's cradling is his ancestor, Agat Mameta Mabel, who died 250 years ago. And yes, Agat is positioned in the very similar hyperflexed seated position we saw a moment ago in another photo from southern China. But the main difference between the two is pretty apparent. These skeletal remains are pitch black compared to the gray tones of the ones in Southeast Asia. And some of the skin tissue has become leather, too. In a 2016 interview with the Huffington Post, Dr. Semiarto Aji Purwanto, a lecturer in anthropology at the University of Indonesia and an expert on Dani culture, Dr. S provided some insight into how a body here is preserved. First, the deceased is placed in the sun and then moved to a cave where, quote, the remains are exposed to hot smoke. They're drained of liquefied fat through piercings and slathered with lard. The entire process takes months, end quote. Well, that is informative, but I thought it was brief. I could not help but dig a little deeper. I'm sorry. You know me. I mean, come on. We're talking about the complete transformation of a human body into what resembles a sculpture in an environment that is hot and humid. The process must take a village. And you know what? It fucking does. In an article written by Daniel Stone of the National Geographic, I came across the Anga tribe in Papua New Guinea. Over a decade, they slowly opened up about the mummification process to a German photographer and environmental scientist named Ulla Lohmann, who took the next photo you need to see. I'll give you a second to swipe past Eli and Agat. Yeah. Yep, my friends, that is a room of about 8 people tending to a deceased member of their tribe who is sitting in a makeshift chair made of rope placed over a fire. As reported by Daniel, no one taking part in the ceremony is allowed to leave the area or wash, and you'll see why in a minute. It's involved as fuck, and graphic, even for this show, so if you're not up for a good old-fashioned mummification, please skip ahead about 15 seconds. Quote, the Anga mummify their dead sitting up and subjecting them to 3 months of smoking over a consistent roaring fire. As the body bloats, it is poked with wooden sticks to drain its fluids, and later a stick is used to gently widen the anus to allow the organs to fall out. From start to finish, the mummifiers must remain with the body at all times, and no part of the dead, his fluids, his intestines, or even his body is allowed to touch the ground, a taboo invitation for bad luck. The most important part is to keep the face intact. In a culture without photography, the only way to preserve the image of the departed is to physically see their immortal faces. We have pictures, they have mummies, Ulla Lohmann said to National Geographic. The Anga believe that the spirit roams free during the day and returns to the mummified bodies at night. Without seeing the face, the spirits can't find their own body and would wander eternally. End quote. Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the folks who skipped ahead. Hi, you missed nothing. Nothing at all, no. All you need to know is that this process allows relatives to keep loved ones close, like in a room in the home, and having them close leads to blessings. Well, now that we know all this, let's head on back to Dr. Hung and her team, who wondered if it's possible that the bodies here in Southeast Asia, approximately 5,100 kilometers or over 3,100 miles away from Papua New Guinea, were prepared in the same way, with smoke and fire. It was time to investigate. In January 2019, the team began with a detour to Eli's remote village, and they met, if you will, several modern smoked mummies inside private households. Hello. They took notes, looked at photographs, and made observations. They said goodbye and skedaddled back to Southeast Asia, where they collected bones across 54 burials within 11 sites for analysis. And get this, only one skull had obvious visual signs of exposure to fire. And yeah, I have a photo of it over at our socials. There it is, a black smoky spot above the skull's right eye. You're welcome. Anyway, this lack of clear evidence in no way stopped Hung and the gang. Quote, we realized we needed a scientific test to prove our hypothesis. If a body was smoked by low-temperature fire, all while still protected by skin, muscle, and tissue, the bones would not be obviously blackened, but they could still retain subtle signs or microscopic traces of past firing or smoking. Using 2 independent laboratory techniques, called X-ray diffraction and Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, these methods could detect microscopic changes in the structure of bone material caused by high temperatures. End quote from her essay. So, after beaming infrared light at a bunch of bones and analyzing how they absorb that light at specific frequencies, revealing what, if any, substances are on them, and doing some good old-fashioned carbon dating. What did they find? Drumroll, please. Thank you in the back. Hyperflex yourself into a huddled position for this. The results confirmed the remains had been exposed to low heat, and nearly all of them had been smoked. And according to the age range of these bones, this method of mummification began 14,000 years ago and continued up until 4,000 years ago. If this sounds astonishing, it is, for three main reasons. One, quote, "This is the first time any such evidence has been found of this kind of treatment being applied to dead people in Paleolithic times," end quote, said co-author Professor Peter Bellwood in an interview with IFL Science. So please, everyone, add another achievement for pre-Neolithic people: mummification. Yes, round of applause, rightfully so. And number two, the smoking method is older, way older than the legendary mummifications we're so familiar with. As reported by Benjamin Taub of IFL, the mummification processes in ancient Egypt didn't begin until around 4,500 years ago, while mummies attributed to the Chinchorro culture in northern Chile date back some 7,000 years. Which means that the people of Southeast Asia were already mummifying their dead for thousands of years, even before Chile got going. And finally, number three, this discovery could be a missing link, explaining how smoking practices reached Papua New Guinea 3,000 miles east. Hung and the gang will continue to analyze these extraordinary remains and the possible connection between these locations. In the meantime, I wonder who thought of it first, and they just totally went for it. That had to be a wild day. After the break, we will be leaving ancient bones for more recent bones and the beautiful lands of Asia for the beautiful lands of Tanzania. A medical case that will leave you speechless is ahead, and I'd tell you to prepare yourself, but honestly, there's no way. Oh, how exciting. Stay tuned.
This holiday, give the gift that says, let's cancel plans and just lounge. MeUndies has dropped their new holiday collection, and it's made for maximum cozy. We're talking soft as snow, ultra-modal fabric, festive prints, and loungewear so comfy, your couch might get jealous. Onesies, hoodies, joggers, even delightfully quirky holiday designs. You're welcome. Knock out all your holiday gifting needs with deals up to 60% off at MeUndies.com/Spotify. Enter promo code Spotify. That's MeUndies.com/Spotify, code Spotify.
Ford was built on the belief that the world doesn't get to decide what you're capable of. You do. So ask yourself, can you or can't you? Can you load up a Ford F-150 and build your dream with sweat and steel? Can you chase thrills and conquer curves in a Mustang? Can you take a Bronco to where the map ends and adventure begins? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Ready, set, Ford.
And we're back. We are so back. And my friends, there's really no way to tell this story other than by diving right the fuck in and immediately sitting down, because the only thing more shocking than the details are the images. So, join me, will you, just this year inside the emergency department of Muhimbili National Hospital in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who may be like, what? Don't worry. I've got you. Please, everyone imagine South Africa. Wonderful. Point to the East Coast and move your finger up just a bit. Perfect. There is Mozambique. Okay, one more time. Follow that coastline north just a little bit and you'll find Tanzania, whose Muhimbili National Hospital sits a mere stone's throw away from the shore of the Indian Ocean. Now, Muhimbili, or MNH for short, is a national referral hospital, a research center, and a university teaching hospital that on average tends to 2,000 outpatients per day. Being in operation for over 11 years, at that rate, you might think they've already seen it all. Well, I'm proud to say, on this day, there will be a first. A 44-year-old man walked in on his own just a moment ago, explaining to health professionals here he's not experiencing any chest pain, difficulty breathing, a cough or a fever, symptoms you'd expect on an average day, but something a tad more peculiar. To help explain, he lifted his shirt to reveal his right nipple. And trust me, no one was expecting that move either. What the staff saw was also unexpected, to say the least. Now, I'm just going to tell you what they saw, and if you want to look, you know where you can. That's over at our socials. And if you choose to do so, dare I say you are the boldest of the bold business geese. Okay, what the staff saw was pus. A thick, yellowish-white fluid coming out from the skin underneath the nipple. And it's okay to audibly scream because that is the correct reaction. And when I tell you that this had been happening for the past 10 days, yes, 10 days, feel free to scream even louder. Our patient was right for finally coming in. Pus forms as a result of the body's immune response to an infection. It's produced when white blood cells accumulate at the site of said infection, releasing enzymes that kill bacteria and damage tissue. All of that accumulated material, including the dead bacteria, the tissue debris, and the white blood cells, make up the pus. So, you know what that means. Something happened at least 10 days ago. But what? Well, our patient couldn't think of anything significant lately that would cause such internal damage that it would start leaking out of the body. Diving deeper, though, into his medical history, the patient did recall a little something. Well, it wasn't a little something. What am I saying? The guy was nearly killed 8 years ago. In 2017, he sustained multiple cuts and stab wounds to his face, back, chest, and abdomen. But all good. After the incident, he received first aid at a primary health facility where the wounds were cleaned and dressed. He was conscious, vital signs were stable, and judging by the overall outward appearance, he was fine. It led the team there to believe no internal investigation was needed. Well, now might be the time. As reported by Mindy Weisberger of Live Science, doctors began the examination at his ribcage, where they noticed the right side of his chest was flattened at the front, and his chest did not fully expand on that side when he inhaled. Between the pus, this past altercation, and this physical anomaly, all signs were pointing to a much-needed X-ray for proper diagnosis. My friends, I don't think anyone at the radiology department or even the entire facility at MNH could have expected to see this. Please, drop whatever sharp object you may be holding right now and pick up your phone. Head on over to today's post on the old socials, and if you don't want to see the nitpick, well, what can I say? Swipe past it quickly. I will have a warning up before that image. Just swipe past it with a fury and you will be rewarded with an X-ray that's easily a new contender for a spot in the top 3 most bananas X-rays on this show. I will give you a second. Yeah, that is real. That is a real blade of about 6 to 8 inches long, resting horizontally inside this man's chest cavity. Let's get into it. No pun intended. And to do so, I'm about to say some fancy-ass words. And then after I say these fancy-ass words, I'm going to break them down to reveal an event and a wound even more aghast than the pussy nipple. Here we go. From the case report titled, "An 8-year asymptomatic retention of a knife blade in the chest," quote, "The entry point was identified through the right scapula, between the 5th and 6th posterior intercostal spaces, with the tip extending to the 3rd and 4th anterior intercostal spaces. CT also demonstrated heel fractures of the right scapula, 5th and 6th ribs posteriorly, and the 3rd rib anteriorly. An elliptical area of consolidation with the central hypodensity was observed, further supporting the interpretation of a resolved or chronic located hematoma. The remainder of the lung parenchyma appeared unremarkable." End quote. Okay, girl, I got you. Everyone, please imagine a crash test dummy. Stick with me here, just do it, a crash test dummy. Okay, perfect, thank you. Now imagine that dummy facing away from you, so you see its back. Lovely. Now, take an imaginary knife, and what we're going to do with this here imaginary knife is aim for the space between the 5th and 6th rib down from the right shoulder. That was the entry point. The blade entered here, but at such an upward angle that the tip of the knife landed between the 3rd and 4th rib. And if you're asking yourself, at this point, how in the holy hell there are no organs affected, well, in the next x-ray, you'll see why. This is almost like an aerial view where you're looking down at the chest cavity, and at the very center is a white mass. That's his heart. And the knife is all the way to the patient's right. It missed his heart. And even more miraculously, it missed all arteries, veins, and nerves located in the spaces between these ribs. Hell, even the lungs were, quote, unremarkable. I don't know what you call that, other than luck. And I have no idea what you call having a blade stored in your body for 8 years with no further damage. That's beyond luck. And this guy can thank his body for that. As so wonderfully explained by Mindy Weisberger of Live Science, one way the body protects itself against foreign objects is through a process called fibrous capsule formation, in which the immune system cocoons the object in collagen and other fibers to limit damage and inflammation in the surrounding tissue. Such encapsulation of the knife is likely what enabled the man to spend the next 8 years unaware that there was a blade inside his chest, according to the report. End quote. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say other than how this was treated, so here we go. A thoracotomy was performed, which is another fancy way of saying they done cracked open his ribcage and fished out the knife. The medical team flushed the chest cavity with a solution of sodium chloride and installed a drainage tube because this guy is prone to pussin'. Post-op. He received a broad-spectrum antibiotic for several days while under surveillance in the hospital. On the 8th day, that drain was removed, and with things now truly looking on the up and up, our 44-year-old patient was discharged and released. No further complications were reported. The guy is completely fine and living his life. And now he has one of the craziest stories to tell at parties. Thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, telling your friends. Over Thanksgiving dinner, like when it's like finally silent in the room, just bring up the smoked mummies and how they do it, if you listened to that part. And when someone says, God, that was so inappropriate, say, right? And then just pick up your knife and cut into something, and as you're cutting into something, bring up this guy's chest. And a pointy thanks to the folks over at Airwaves Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you love the other podcasts in this family. And please, stay interesting.